The recent attacks at Palgram, Indian administered Kashmir, resulting in a death of 26 tourists and injuring 17 others, is deeply tragic. A tragic incident that underscores the complexities of the security in this region. First, I wanted to condemn this violence. Pakistan condemns the attack on innocent civilians. Such acts of violence are inhumane and has no justification. In fact, no friend of Pakistan or Kashmir would ever think of doing this. The second is, of course, the security concern. The incident highlights the security situation in Indian administered Kashmir. The resurgence of violence, despite claims of normalization, raises question about the effectiveness of security measures in place. And then there is the human impact. Beyond the immediate loss of life, such incidents have broader implications. They instill fear among local population and tourists alike, leading to economic downturns and social unrest. And of course, there's this need of dialogue. Pakistan believes that sustainable peace in the region can only be achieved through meaningful dialogue. Addressing the root cause of unrest, including political grievances and human rights concerns, is essential. And then there's this is an international responsibility. The international community has a role to play in facilitating dialogue and ensuring that human rights are upheld in the region. While Pakistan remains committed to and peace and stability, it's imperative to address the underlying issue that leads to this tragic incident. A comprehensive approach combining security measures with political dialogue and respect for human rights is essential for lasting peace in Kashmir. But let me point out to another approach um, which needs to be looked into. While recent attacks of innocent tourists in Kashmir may be condemned in the strongest possible terms, this is not just a human tragedy. It's a strategic provocation. This act is designed to destabilize, to create fear, and to escalate tensions in already volatile region. The philosophy of proxy warfare, we need to analyze this through the lens of asthmatic, um, um, emetric warfare, the use of non-state actors, plausible deniability, and psychological operation is a familiar playbook in South Asia. That's understood. What we are witnessing is not random violence, it's calculated. And the objective is to sabotage any move towards de escalation or peace between India and Pakistan. So I've always pointed out that there are third party actors which doesn't want peace between India and Pakistan. And our biggest national security um, enemy, or the biggest perverts of peace, I would say, perverts are not just the traditional shalwar kameez or bearded or with somebody with a tilak. Uh, it's the people within, non-state actors, and 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 these are, be it at Samjhauta Express or 2611, of course. So there are proxies, working against peace. So Pakistan's national security posture is very important. Pakistan's security's doctrine remains defensive but robust. There have been claims of India from India that to attack Pakistan, but of course, Pakistan's security doctrine remains defensive but robust. Forces are combat ready. Surveillance is active. We had, what happened since yesterday. Pak PF is in air 24/7. We have eyes on airspace 24/7. We don't want a deja vu of what has happened in the past, and we'll respond to any misadventures uh, decisively. Our commitment remains, from a Pakistani perspective, to regional peace and would not be mistaken for weakness. It's a strategic choice, not a tactical necessity. To remember that. What the Pakistanis at this moment think, the Pakistan has, if you've seen very recently, has reached out to Afghanistan. Um, where the Pakistani deputy prime minister was in Afghanistan for this, how do we say, to give an olive branch to the Afghan government. And then things have been sorted out. The Pakistanis have been reached out to Iranians, um, and to other, neighboring countries, and we have created somewhat a cordial border. We've been trying to do that for a long time. Sometimes we succeed, sometimes we don't, but I think the foreign policy as such, especially with regards to an immediate neighbor, had been um, um, quite consistent, and I think we've won friends on our borders. We have recommitted to peace with Afghanistan. We've recommitted, and that would create a cushion for Pakistani armed forces at the west border, and would eventually bring down attacks by TTP. But let's coming back to what has happened in Kashmir. But there are historical parallels. We should learn from the past. So let us remember the Samjhauta Express attack, or the 2611, or the Pulwama, was presided with a peak in hostility and mutual suspicion. And each was driven by actors who operate in a gray zone. And this is where the Pakistanis and Indians have to look into it. There are no coincidences. They are part of a pattern designed to derail diplomacy and provoke reaction. Overreaction, I would say, not reaction, from states. And for this, Prime Minister Modi had to cut down his trip from Saudi Arabia and come back. So the seriousness of this cannot be denied. We saw President Trump calling Modi. Um, but what would obviously happen is anybody's choice. But what should happen is that the statesmanship. The real challenge today is not just military but political, and it is the responsibility of both Islamabad and New Delhi to rise above the debate and call it with maturity. So any kinetic response without attribution plays directly into the hands of those who want a war without borders. So this is where. So I'll repeat: any kinetic response without attribution plays directly into the hands of those who want a war without borders. So let's just call out the bait and act with maturity, right? And is this what the Indians want? If that is it, I think, and there's been arguments in Pakistan about this has happened when President Clinton was there, or uh, on the Indian Parliament attacks. Was this a false flag operation? That is something, I would not go into conspiracies, but let's just look into what has happened. The American vice president was in India. Uh, Prime Minister Modi was in Saudi Arabia, and this has happened. And would the Pakistanis be any fool? Would any wouldn't have any sense to do it if the timing is. So the timing of this is very important, and we need to understand who is behind it and who's not. But strategic patience and is important. We must deploy from a Pakistani or from an Indian perspective, we must deploy strategic patience. Simultaneously, we must dominate the information space as Pakistan, as level-headed people. A clear, firm narrative must go out that Pakistan condemns terrorism in all its forms. Diplomatic channels must remain open, and backdoor communication line must be protected from populist pressures. And apparently, this goes for both India and Pakistan. We have to open some sort of communication between them. There was one. I know Ajit Doval and the Pakistani ISI chief has mapped. So there is some sort of a communication. There is the National Security Advisor in chief, Ajit Doval, who is open to communication. But I think this has to come out in public, and you know, and you know, and from a Pakistani perspective, we eventually need some sort of a national unity. The people's role in Pakistan is important. Pakistan, Pakistan citizens must understand that psychological warfare is much about optics and public reaction as it is about physical casualties. Unity, resilience, and an informed public are our first line of defense. So we need not to get into that bait and call and understand what is happening. The path towards a dual track doctrine, deterrence and dialogue. That should be Pakistan's policy. Region cannot afford another miscalculation. Let us be clear: Pakistan will not initiate conflict, but we are fully prepared to finish one if that is imposed upon us. I hope that um, the peace, the peace prevails. But I'll commit again, while Pakistan remains committed to peace and stability, it is imperative to understand the underlying issue that leads to such strategic or tragic incidents. A comprehensive approach combining security measures with political dialogue and respect for human rights is essential for lasting peace in Kashmir. Thank you.